explain the emotion why I'm starting with this much of emotion though. It's an interesting thing. I'm not going to share all of this today, but it's special to be here with my grandma and all of that history, but it's special to be here today because 2 years ago my world fell apart. And I ran from God. And 11 months ago, I surrendered my life back to God. And so to be here today in front of you, getting to share about Jesus is surreal to me. It's surreal. And so I just want to start because I thought about writing this down in the talk and being like, just prepare, you're going to cry when you get up there, but I didn't. And God's reminding me to just do that from now on because it's going to happen. But I wanted to start with a prayer of thanks and just thank Jesus because it's special that I get to be here today, not just to be here with my grandma and to be here with the history. And Grandma King, I was young and only knew her for a few years before she passed away. Well, my son's here with his great-grandma, my grandma, so pretty special. So if you'll bow your heads with me, I'd love to pray. God, I know you have a word to share with everyone today, and I'm excited to share that word and get to be up here. But I'd be remiss, Lord, if I didn't come up here and just thank you. There are a lot of people that could be up here sharing this message today. But you got me back. You chased me down. You helped the prodigal son return. And because of that, I get to be up here today and I get to share. And I'm so grateful. I'm so grateful for that. And so, Lord, I just pray for your Spirit to speak today and for your Spirit to be here with us. And I pray, Lord, that at some point I'll be able to talk without tears during this message. In Jesus' name. So, for the sake of how many verses that I'm going to be sharing today, I'm using the handy-dandy iPhone. So, let me grab that and get that set up here for us. So I remember being here, and now Eric returns after he made the emotions come. He snuck out and didn't get to see them all a few minutes ago. I was blaming you for the special message that you shared about the family history. You got the emotions started, so thank you for that. No, it's good. I remember early on in this church, my brother, he shared a little bit about this. My brother is much more outgoing than I am in a lot of ways, especially naturally. And so he'd be the kid, if you asked any kid in this church growing up, we were here until I was 7 years old. If you asked any kid in this church, come up front, can you lead the kids in something? There's Nate, raise the hand. He would be up here, he'd be up here leading. I mean, heck, he'd come up here and sing probably sometimes when you guys didn't want him to. That's my brother. He's very outgoing, loves to do that, and has a gift for speaking, and I love it, and I love seeing him do that. This is me. I remember when my cousins, Trish and Jeff, got married here, and I was crying like I did today in the back as I don't remember, 6-year-old, 5-year-old, something, and because I didn't want to walk down the aisle to be the ring bearer. That's who I am. I would much rather be sitting in the back. I see one of my friends here. I'd be much rather sitting in the back watching the service than being up here. But here's what I've learned in this last 11 months of coming back to Jesus. He's not super concerned about our comfort. He really isn't. He's not super concerned about our comfort. What he wants is our obedience. And so I am up here today. I remember my brother a couple weeks ago. I know there's a few of you that were here, probably a lot of you that were here, when he spoke. And he talked about Moses and Aaron. And his message was, here I am for the great I am. And when he shared, he talked about Moses and Aaron. And while I was sitting here listening to his message, I was going, well, if he could just be Aaron for me in a month, and come speak to them for me. I'll give him the notes, and he could share it, and we'd be good to go. But God, instead he said, 2 Timothy 1:7 over me is, I did not give you a spirit of fear, but of power, love, and self-discipline. And so here I am. But the way that I speak, I feel like it's got to be the way that God has built me. And so one thing I wanted to share with you and I wanted to do with you is going to put all of us maybe a little bit outside our comfort zone. I have been practicing silence in my life. I do it every day. I try to do it 3 times a day. Typically, I do it 2 times a day. And what I do is I sit, it's through a devotional called The Daily Office. I don't know if some of you have heard of it. It's a really neat devotional. And the devotional starts with 2 minutes of silence with the Lord, and the devotional ends with 2 minutes of silence with the Lord. And so what I would like to do is to invite him in. I know we've prayed, but I want to invite him in through 2 minutes of silence. And so what I'm actually going to do with all of you is to let you commune with the Lord and then share this message. Because I think that's going to be the most that you get out of this is from him speaking and not from me speaking. And so what I would ask you to do is when I set my timer, I have it here, I'll set my timer. We're going to do 2 minutes of silence, but it's not just 2 minutes of silence. What I'm going to ask you to do is in this 2 minutes of silence is to put your hands in a posture of receiving and in a posture of coming before the Lord. And I'm going to say this myself, but I ask that you would say this with the Lord as well and say, Lord, I'm here. What do you want to say? And we're going to sit there in silence. He may say something, he may say nothing in that silence. He may say something throughout the talk. I don't know. That's between you and the Lord. But in the silence, I would ask you too to not force it. Don't try to find something. Don't try to look for something. Don't try to go get something. Just sit in the presence of the Lord. And so I'm going to set this timer here. I'm going to say, Lord, I'm here. And then when it beeps, we'll begin the message. Lord, we're here. Yeah, 2 minutes feels a lot longer when you're standing in front of people than it does when you're sitting in your office at work by yourself. But thank you for doing that with me. I want to go back and read John 15, 1 through 4 to begin here. It says, I am the true vine, and my Father is the vine dresser. Every branch in me that does not bear fruit, he takes away. And every branch that does bear fruit, he prunes, that it may bear more fruit. Already you are clean because of the word that I have spoken to you. Abide in me, and I in you. As the branch cannot bear fruit by itself, unless it abides in the vine, neither can you unless you abide in me. In there, God talks about fruit. Jesus talks about fruit, bearing fruit. Well, in Galatians 22, we know what it talks about with fruit. What fruit is that? Love, joy, peace, patience, kindness, goodness, gentleness, and self-control. Now, I promised my son I wouldn't sing the song, The Fruit of the Spirit's Not a Coconut, but he knows the fruits of the Spirit from that song as well. But the fruit of the Spirit in that is not the fruit of this world. It's the fruit of the Spirit. Because in the world, we know those words. We know love. We know joy. We know peace. We know patience. Those are talked about not just by people that are in the church, but they are completely different versions of those words than what we have from the Spirit. And so I wanted to go through each of those words and talk about what that is, because the fruit of the Spirit is not the fruit of the world. The first one, love. You have heard that it was said, you shall love your neighbor and hate your enemy. But I say to you, love your enemies and pray for those who persecute you, so that you may be sons of your Father who is in heaven. For he makes his sun rise on the evil and on the good, and sends rain on the just and on the unjust. For if you love those who love you, what reward do you have? Do even the tax collectors do the same? That's Matthew 5:43 through 46. The love that God puts inside of us is to love our enemies. Pray for those who persecute you. That's not a worldly love. That's not a normal love. It's not a fun love. It's not an enjoyable love. It's a love that costs something. It's a love that can only come from His Spirit. It's not a love that we can muster up. When someone wrongs me, my first reaction is not, I love you. My first reaction is anger and frustration. But He asks us to love them. Second one, joy. Count it all joy, my brothers, when you meet trials of various kinds. For you know that the testing of your faith produces steadfastness. And let steadfastness have its full effect, that you may be perfect and complete, lacking in nothing. Joy is not circumstantial. America talks about the pursuit of happiness, the pursuit of an emotion that is temporary. Joy is not happiness. Joy is not circumstantial. Joy is not something that happens just because things are going well in our life. We can have joy when things are hard. I was praying about what stories to tell. I'll tell you, my grandma, having joy in the midst of what she's gone through is an incredible testament to joy in the Spirit. Because she loves Jesus. An incredible example of that. It doesn't matter what is going on the outside world, because the inside world with Jesus can still create joy, can still give us joy. And joy doesn't mean that we're sitting out there going, woohoo, I'm excited! Because no one's excited when they're going through trials. It's not about being excited about being in a trial. What does He call it? Steadfastness. Have you ever met that person that can go through anything and they just seem the same? They seem okay. They seem like they have joy. My world has not changed a whole lot since I came back to Jesus in terms of the circumstances. There's a lot of circumstances I wish were different. But the neatest thing about being with God is that I can live in joy and peace. Which is the next one, peace. This one is my favorite because he talks about in Philippians 4:6-7, do not be anxious about anything. He doesn't just say some things. He says, do not be anxious about anything, but by prayer and supplication present your requests to the Lord. And what does he say after that? And the peace of God, which transcends all understanding, not just some, all. I think those words are very important to look at. Anything and all. The peace of God, which transcends all understanding, will guard your hearts and your minds in Christ Jesus. That peace comes only from Him. I will tell you, being up here in front of you is the most anxious thing I do in my life. I do not like this stuff. I do not enjoy it when I'm doing it out of myself. But I love it when I'm listening to the Spirit, because it's Him. But my natural bent in life is anxiousness. That's actually how I'm just naturally more anxious. I move faster, I get stressed out easily, all of those things. I'll tell you though, this last 11 months as God has grown in me and I've grown in Scripture and knowing who He is, my anxiousness has gone like this. And my peace has gone like this. And it has nothing to do with these different things that I try to do to figure out how to not be anxious. Yeah, are there natural things that you can do that God has, I wouldn't even call them natural, God's created them, that you can breathe. Those tools are good, but they're only tools. If you don't have Jesus, tools can only go so far. Because if I breathe and breathe and breathe and my circumstances are the same and things are really hard, I'm going to stay in the same state even though my breath may help me feel better in the moment. But if I have Jesus, then I have the author and perfecter of my faith. I don't have to be worried. I don't have to be fearful. I can live in peace. I can have that. It's a stillness, it's a calm. Be still and know that I am God. It doesn't say be still and know that everything's going to change. Be still and know that I am God. It's not a stillness that comes from you. It's a stillness that comes from him. Patience. I think the one that's probably preached on the most, maybe. Patience. Being able to be patient. Romans 12, I really enjoy reading this one because it's a tough call. Serve the Lord, that was before it. Rejoice in hope. Be patient in tribulation. Be constant in prayer. And then contribute to the needs of the saints and seek to show hospitality. Patient in tribulation. Patient when things are hard. Patient when things are difficult. It's easy to be patient when it's easy. When things are simple, why is it not hard to wait? It's not hard to wait. When things are going really, really hard, and God says, wait on me. Because if you've read Scripture, which all of us have here, waiting on the Lord is something that we have to do quite a lot. But I'll tell you this, if we never had to wait on the Lord, and we never had to be patient for him, and wait on him, there's no faith. There's no faith. There are times where he is going to do things and wait on things because he wants us to have faith in him. To actually put our faith in him. And that's difficult at times. It's hard at times. It's hard to wait on the Lord. That's not easy. But that patience comes from him. But there's another side to patience. Being patient with people. Being patient with people is not, I would say being patient with the Lord a lot of times is simpler than being patient with people. Does anyone in here have people in their lives that annoy them? I mean, I do. They're sitting right now. I'm just kidding. I do. We all have people in our lives that we struggle with or that are hard for us. But God also calls us to be with people, to help people, to help the least of these. He doesn't ask us to do things that are simple or that are easy. He asks us to be patient. And again, we have to wait on the Lord in those things too. He doesn't always ask us to be the one that's the voice in their life. Sometimes we just need to pray. Kindness and gentleness, faithfulness. Oh, here we go. This is why, yep. So faithfulness is funny. God is faithful. I just want you guys to know that because I wrote down all of the fruits of the Spirit and I left out faithfulness. And then he was faithful, and right as I was about to start the talk, he reminded me, or not started, but when I was looking at it earlier, that I had left out faithfulness, and he was faithful in letting me put it back on the page. So, God is faithful. I just let you guys know that. And faithfulness to him is being obedient. We need to continue to be obedient to him. Kindness and gentleness I put together, and so we're gonna skip goodness for just a second, and we'll come back to it. But I thought 2 Timothy 2:24 through 26 spoke to this. He said, have nothing to do with foolish, ignorant controversies. You know that they breed quarrels. And the Lord's servant must not be quarrelsome, but kind to everyone, able to teach, patiently enduring evil, correcting his opponents with gentleness. God may perhaps grant them repentance, leading to a knowledge of the truth, and they may come to their senses and escape from the snare of the devil, after being captured by him to do his will. Kindness and gentleness. Honestly, I believe that in the church as a whole needs to be more evident. Because he talks about that. I think we are really good in the church. There are so many churches out there today. I don't actually believe that was God's original design to have this many different denominations and this many different churches. Well, why does he have them? Because we're human. And we major on the minors a lot. And we quarrel about things that don't matter a lot. That don't actually matter to salvation and to people coming back to him. Because that's the thing. That's the thing that matters. If we're quarreling about something that leads people away from Jesus, even if we're talking about something that we think is a good thing to do, it doesn't matter. And so those quarrels that he's talking about, it doesn't matter to have those quarrels. It doesn't matter to have those controversies. It doesn't matter to talk about it. He doesn't say, don't do them sometimes. He says, have nothing to do with foolish, ignorant controversies. because you know that they breed quarrels. Have nothing to do with them. He's very clear. Because he wants us to have kindness and gentleness. And to share those things with the people that don't know him, because that's who he is. He's kind. He's gentle. And so he wants us to have that. Goodness, I looked up in the Greek, and it's a word that says agathosun. I'm probably saying that incorrectly. But it means uprightness in heart and life. I look at it as integrity. In Luke 6:45, it says, the good person out of the good treasure of his heart produces good, and the evil person out of the evil treasures produces evil. For out of the abundance of the heart, his mouth speaks. I think a lot of us have heard that verse before. Out of the abundance of the heart, the mouth speaks. But how often do we actually let it change us? If we are consistently having things that come out of our mouth that aren't uplifting in the church and aren't bringing us back to Jesus and helping people see his words, aren't helping people see him, then why do they keep flowing out? If something's flowing out of us that we don't want to flow out of us, then we need to go into our heart and ask Jesus, why is that coming out of us? How can you create more goodness within me? Why is that coming out of my heart? Why am I, when I get frustrated, that coming out? Because it's most of the time, we can do pretty good. Things don't come out of us that we don't want to come out of us. But you know when it comes out of us? When the stress level rises. When the stress level rises in our lives, whatever is in here will be out there for everybody. I still have it. I still remember when Nate spoke a few weeks back, I just got surgery on my, I had a hernia on my belly. And so I wasn't feeling super comfortable. And I had a long day on Saturday. And I came back, got in an argument with my mom. And as I was looking back, don't worry, we've talked about it. So it's okay. But I was thinking about, why did that come out? What is going on inside of me? And I was uncomfortable. I wasn't happy. I wasn't happy that I couldn't move, I couldn't exercise, I couldn't do things that I wanted to do. And God used it to reveal to me that my heart was still very dependent on exercise to make myself feel good and not on his spirit. Though I've grown a lot in the last 11 months, and I believe that physical health will actually help you in your walk with Jesus. I think it's an important piece. Physical health is it's not Jesus. And so when it was taken away, I realized how much I used it when things were uncomfortable to not look at the uncomfortable. And that when I was uncomfortable, it came out. And so I needed to do some deeper work to look into that with Jesus. Still ongoing. The last one, self-control. Proverbs 25:29 says, a man without self-control is like a city broken into and left without walls. He has nothing to guard his heart. He has no boundaries. Titus 2:6 talks about younger men. It says, likewise, urge the younger men to be self-controlled. Why does God ask for this? God has given me gifts and abilities. There's things that I do well in my life that I am excited about to use for his kingdom. But what he's shown me in this season, because I actually just accepted a job at a place that I would never accept a job for, doing a job that I would never choose to do, because I needed to be obedient to God because he wants to teach me something in this season. Now, there's going to be many other reasons I'm sure that God's going to show me of why I have this job, but one of those reasons that he has given me this job is because I've never done the small things well. I've never done the little things well. I've never been self-controlled when things get hard. And so over these last 11 months, and this is a story for another day, and I'm excited to share it with whoever wants to hear it, my testimony. But over these last 11 months, God has taught me how to be disciplined. He's taught me how to be self-controlled. But I've also been able to be self-controlled without working in a fast-paced environment, without having my son at home all the time, although I would love to. So when I have a family, that's going to be different. You've got to be able to be self-controlled in those environments. And I believe self-control encompasses way more than this. But I was walking on the trail, this is probably about 3 or 4 months ago, I was walking on the trail, and I asked Jesus, I said, why have I never been able to be self-controlled? Why is this such a hard thing for me to do? And clear as day, he said, because it's a fruit of the Spirit and you never had the Spirit. It's not something that I can naturally do without him, but with him, it's fun now. I actually pray and I go to God. When I know I have to get up at 5 a.m. consistently, trust me, I don't want to. I actually ask God, hey, can you get me out of bed? And he'll get me out of bed. Like, he's in the simple. He's in the little things. His Spirit will help you with anything that you ask him to help you with. And his Spirit will also change you. I've never been self-controlled. I'm 36 years old. This is the first year of my life I've ever been self-controlled. Why? Jesus. His Spirit, not mine. So as we continue here, fruit of the Spirit is what it says in Galatians 22, or 5:22. It doesn't say fruits of the Spirit. It's a singular word. It's karpos. It's a singular word, which means that as Christians, as we walk further with Jesus, we will encompass all of the fruits. All of those fruits are one fruit. When you look at a peach tree, they don't have peaches and apples and different things on it. They have peaches. So if you are a child of Jesus and you have his Spirit in you, then all of the fruit of the Spirit that is talked about in Galatians 5:22 will become evident and start to be fruit that shows out in our lives. So if it's not fruit in our lives, if that's not coming out in our lives, if that's not the fruit, then why is that? But also, if you look at all those fruit, love, joy, peace, patience, kindness, goodness, gentleness, faithfulness, goodness, I'm going to miss a couple, self-control. If I look at all that, and I say I gotta encompass all of that, I'm going to get really fearful. I'm going to get really nervous. Because I'll tell you, that's a lot. That's a lot that we're supposed to do. But here's the cool thing about it. But Jesus looked at them and said, with man this is impossible, but with God all things are possible. Matthew 19:26. But he said to me, my grace is sufficient for you, for my power is made perfect in weakness. Therefore I will boast all the more gladly of my weaknesses, so that the power of Christ may rest upon me. 2 Corinthians 12:9. And the one that we all have heard many times, I can do all things through him who strengthens me. Philippians 4:13. So the second point that I wanted to share with you today is that we need to stop chasing fruit, which is the title of this talk, and we just need to connect to Jesus. And yeah, part of connecting to Jesus, a huge part, because it's his word, is getting into his word. But we don't get into his word just to get into his word. We want to get to know Jesus. So when we spend time with Jesus, and yes, it is something that we need to do every single day. But we don't just have great habits. We don't just read the Bible. We don't just fast. We don't just go to church on Sundays. All three of those things are good. But if we believe that we can achieve fruit without the Spirit, then we're just going to be the Pharisees. Because they had Jesus right in front of them. And they missed him. And this is how I believe we become Pharisees today, is to do all of these great habits, all of these awesome things that we need to do as Christians, without trying to meet with Jesus. There's no reason to do any of these things if we aren't trying to meet with Jesus and get to know his Spirit. It doesn't matter. We will miss him. We won't be with him. And all he wants, he tells us to go into all the world and make disciples. But that comes out of being a disciple. You cannot make a disciple for someone that you do not know. And so we have to make sure that we are spending that time with him. Not just in what we need to do for habits. Now he calls us later on, and we'll talk about this because we're going to go through the last little bit of this chapter, is he calls us friends. And there are friendships. Heck, I would say marriage relationships. You don't necessarily want to do stuff with them every day. You're going to get frustrated. There's lots of things that go on in relationship. And so there are going to be days where you don't feel like spending time with Jesus. And you do it because you love Jesus. So there are those moments. I want to be clear in that. But you're still seeking Jesus. You're still trying to spend time with him because you want to be with him and you want to meet with him because you love him. We're going to go back and we're going to look at John 15, 5 through 8, which says, I am the vine, you are the branches. Whoever abides in me and I in him, he it is that bears much fruit. For apart from me, you can do nothing. If anyone does not abide in me, he is thrown away like a branch and withers. And the branches are gathered, thrown into the fire, and burned. If you abide in me, and my words abide in you, ask whatever you wish, and it will be done for you. By this my Father is glorified, that you bear much fruit, and so prove to be my disciples. We abide in him, and we bear fruit, which proves that we're his disciples. This is how we show the world that we know Jesus, is by the fruit that is in our lives. And so if we're not producing that fruit, it's not something that we need to be mad at ourselves, angry with ourselves, upset with ourselves about. What it is something that needs to help us turn. If we don't see that fruit in our lives, and we look at our lives and we say, okay, I'm not producing that fruit, we just need to get at the feet of Jesus. Go to his feet and say, God, how does this fruit get produced in my life? I need your help. And I would even go on another step and say, what is blocking this fruit from being produced in my life? And then on the last part of that, just sit with him. Because he's going to do it. You don't have to go force that fruit. There are so many resources in today's world we can go look up. I'm sure we could look stuff up on love. I'm sure we can look stuff up on joy, peace, all of those things. And those resources I don't actually think are bad. I think some of those things could be really good and helpful. But if it's not flowing out of coming to Jesus and saying, how do I do this? Then those tools are not going to help point you back to the author and perfecter of your faith, the only one that can actually give you those things. Those fruits can only be produced by Jesus. Only Jesus. And the world does not need his fruit. They need him. And then he will help them produce that fruit. We show the world who he is by our fruit from him. But they don't need his fruit. They need him. And the fruit comes after that. And we need to show them him. So the last point that I'll make today is more of a question. What fruit is your life producing? It's the same question for me. What fruit is my life producing? And we'll read the last part of this chapter. As the Father has loved me, so have I loved you. Abide in my love. If you keep my commandments, you will abide in my love, just as I have kept my Father's commandments and abide in his love. These things I have spoken to you, that my joy may be in you, and that your joy may be full. This is my commandment, that you love one another as I have loved you. Greater love has no one than this, that someone lay down his life for his friends. You are my friends. You are my friends if you do what I command you. No longer do I call you servants, for the servant does not know what his master is doing, but I have called you friends. For all that I have heard from my Father, I have made known to you. You did not choose me, but I chose you, and appointed you that you should go and bear fruit, and that your fruit should abide, so that whatever you ask the Father in my name, he may give it to you. These things I command you, so that you will love one another. What fruit is your life producing? I shared a little bit, and I can't share all of this story now, because we'll talk about it later with him, but my life is not producing fruit. I wanted it to. I was hoping it would. I tried to do a lot of different things. Actually, some of the things that I talked to you guys about, I tried to breathe. I tried to go on walks. Actually, when we first got separated, talked with my mom and dad, I went to the gym a lot. I walked every day. I lost 20 pounds. I did a lot of good things. But I didn't go to Jesus. And eventually your life is going to produce the fruit of whatever you're connected to. If you're connected to Jesus, it will start to produce the fruit of Jesus and his Spirit. If you're connected to other things, where is it? If this is what we're connected to, I think this is a really important thing in this day and age. Whatever you're connected to, that's the fruit that's going to show in your life, because that's your vine. So I'm actually going to switch up the question of what fruit is your life producing, is what vine are you connected to? Because if you connect to the vine, connect to Jesus, then the overflow of your life will be fruit. It will be fruit. When I came back to Jesus in October of 2022, not that long ago, 11 months ago, I was 340 pounds. And this is an outward thing, but I want to explain it for the inward change. My parents can attest. I have tried to lose weight since I became overweight. I don't know, the last 10 years. And never been able to do it long term. And today I stand before you, I was 226 pounds this morning. In 11 months. Which is crazy. I didn't try to do this crazy diet plan. I didn't try to do a bunch of different things. The only reason that I was able to stick to it and do it this long is because Jesus changed my heart. Because I have his Spirit to go with me on the days that I don't want to do it, he's with me. On the days that I don't want to get up, he's with me. On the days that I got to deal with an emotion, because that's the reason that I got so heavy, it's because I drank and ate myself to getting really heavy, because I didn't want to face things that were really hard. But the reason I'm able to face things that are really hard is because of his Spirit. And so when I came back to him, I was able to get to where I am today because his Spirit is in me and has changed the way that I view the world. And has changed the way that I walk in this world. And has changed how I feel about myself. And has changed my identity. And before, my identity was in myself, and my identity was in what I wanted, and now my identity is in Christ, and so now I can change and actually walk in who I'm supposed to be. So we don't have to fear or try to figure out what fruit we need to produce in our lives. We just need to get before Jesus and spend time with him. For you guys, I honestly am hoping that these words, great, I hope that they impacted you, but those 2 minutes of silence, I hope he spoke. I hope you take that home and you go spend those 2 minutes of silence and you just listen to him. Because that's the coolest thing when we have him. It's not just his word that he shows us. He'll speak to us. He'll guide us. It's not checking boxes. The Christian life is not about trying to check boxes, to do good, to get better, to die. It's about living in freedom right now with Jesus and sharing that joy with the world. Because the coolest thing, 2 Timothy 1:7 is so cool. For he did not give us a spirit of fear, but of power, of love, and of self-control. So when I go out in the world now, and I share with people about Jesus, I don't have to do a lot. He'll just nudge me. One of the things they share at our church that I love is don't begrudge the nudge. He just nudges.
But what I've come to understand is the more and more that I'm obedient to Christ, the less fear I have every single time. Now, there might be fear, and he might ask you to walk and have courage in it anyway. I think he actually does that a lot, because that takes faith, which is what this is all about. But within that, what I've come to realize is that when he gives me a nudge to do something and to speak to somebody about him, weird, he's already been stirring their heart too. And why are we afraid about what they think about us? We have what they don't have. And that's why a connection with Jesus is so powerful. Because when we're connected with Jesus, we know that we actually have something. We have the peace and the joy of the Spirit that the world does not have and that the world needs. And so we can actually share joyfully. We can actually share with gentleness. We can actually share with kindness. We can display those fruits of the Spirit because we have what they need. And so whatever they say to us, whatever they do against us, doesn't matter. Because you're already secure. You already have Jesus. So remember today, when we leave this place, if you remember one thing from this talk, it's the word abide. Forget everything else, the word abide. Because all of the things that I talked about here will happen if you just abide, which means to dwell, to live. He said, abide in me, dwell in me, live in me. You do that, all the rest of this happens.